This is the video for the study guide for 5.5 to 5.8. The first question on the study guide asks us to find the GCF of the list of monomials. So all you're going to do on this one is look at the numbers, see what they have in common, then look at the variables, see what they have in common. So my coefficients are 11, 11, and 3. Those are all prime numbers, so they don't have anything in common. Then I'm going to look at my a's. I've got a to the fourth, a to the third, and a to the sixth. So all of them have at least an a cubed. Then I'm looking at my b's. I don't have a b here, I don't have a b here, so my final answer, GCF, will be a to the third. Alright, number 2, factor completely. Your first step of factoring is always to factor out a GCF. Notice 21x cubed, 6x squared, and 12x all have an x, and they also have a 3 in common. So I'm going to factor out a 3x, and that leaves me behind 7x squared minus 2x plus 4. Okay, then I need to factor what's in the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply my coefficient of my first term and my last term together to get 28. List the factors of 28, which is 1 and 28, 2 and 14, and 4 and 7. Then I'm going to decide which of my factors are going to give me my middle number, which is 2. Well, 1 and 28 can never give me 2, 2 and 14 can never give me 2, and 4 and 7 can never give me 2. If that's the case, then this is as far as it can be factored, and that's your final answer. Alright, first things first, always factor out a GCF. So 24, 32, and 64 all have an 8 in common. So I can factor out an 8. And then here I've got x to the 9th, x to the 7th, and x to the 3rd. So all of them have at least an x to the 3rd, so I can factor that out. Here I've got y to the 9th, y to the 5th, and y squared. So they all have at least a y squared that I can factor out. And then you just divide this by this in order to see what's left. So 24 divided by 8 is 3. X to the 9th divided by x cubed is x to the 6th. Or you can look at it as I had 9 x's, I took 3. You had 9 y's, you took 2, so you have y to the 7th left. Then you do negative 32 divided by 8, which is going to give you negative 4. You had 7 x's, you took 3, so you have 4 left. You had 5 y's, you took 2, so you have 3 left. And then with 64, 64 divided by 8 is 8. You had 3 x's, I took 3 x's. You had 2 y's, I took 2 y's, so you're just done there. That is as far as you can go, so that is your final answer. Okay, 4 terms. 4 terms should immediately indicate factor by grouping. There is nothing that all 4 terms have in common, so I'm going to go ahead and group them. In this first group, they have a 3 in common, leaving behind a y minus 8. Remember, you're always looking at the sign of your third term. This is positive, so you're going to factor a positive number out of your second binomial. So I'm going to factor out an x, a positive x, leaving me y minus 8. Now, the goal of factoring by grouping is that your parentheses end up the same. So you're going to take what's outside of the parentheses, so you get 3 plus x times what's inside the parentheses, which is y minus 8. And remember, you should always be multiplying all of these to check your work. Okay. We've got x cubed plus 5x squared plus x plus 5. They don't all have anything in common. Because there's 4 terms, I'm going to assume factoring by grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and group them. In this first house, I can factor out an x squared, leaving behind an x plus 5. In this second house, I can't factor out anything, so I'm going to assume a 1 in front of it, and that leaves me with x plus 5. Because my parentheses match, factoring by grouping worked. So take what's on the outside, x squared plus 1, and multiply it by what's on the inside, x plus 5, and you're done. Again, always multiply to check. Okay, now notice, on this one, your third term is negative. If your third term is negative, when you group them, group the negative with your second binomial. And that always means that you will factor a negative out of the second binomial. So my first house, I'm going to factor out a 3a squared, leaving behind 5a minus 6b. And I know I'm going to factor a negative out of the second one because my third term is negative. So I'm going to factor out a negative 2b squared, leaving behind 5a minus 6b. So again, these are the same. Had you forgotten to factor out the negative, you would have just ended up with negative 5a plus 6b here. So hopefully at that point you would have realized I need to factor out a negative. So let's do what's on the outside. So 3a squared minus 2b squared times 5a minus 6b, what's on the inside of the parentheses. And that is your answer. Okay, now we're down to regular trinomial factoring. We've got 3 terms here. So we're going to multiply our first, the coefficient of our first and our last. So 1 times 24 is 24. Factors of 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. The only one of those that could give me 23 is 1 and 24. None of the rest of them will. So I'm going to go ahead and build my houses. You get x and x. Always keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you keep your second sign. And you always put your larger number first. Now we're going to check our work. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is x. 24 times x is 24x. And 24 times 1 is 24. When I add together my like terms, I get x squared plus 25x plus 24. That is not what I started with. This says 25, that says 23. So this is incorrect. So let's see if there's any other factors that could give me 24 or 23. There aren't. So this is actually a prime polynomial, which means you can't factor it any further than it already is. Okay? First things first, multiply. First off, see if there's a GCF. There is not. So multiply a coefficient of your first term with 20, so you get 1 times 20 is 20. List your factors. Find out which factors are going to give you your middle term, or your middle coefficient, which is 1. No, no, yes. So build your houses. Each house gets an x. Always keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you keep your second sign. Your larger number always goes first. Look at your houses, see if they have anything in common. X and 5 do not. X and 4 do not. Do a quick check. X squared minus 4x plus 5x minus 20. X squared plus x minus 20. That is correct. So this is my answer. I'm not going to check all of them, but you need to check all of them. Okay, first things first, GCF. In this case, it's 6. X squared minus x minus 6 is left behind. So I multiply your coefficient of your first with your last to get 6. List your factors of 6, 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. 1 and 6 can't give you 1, but 2 and 3 can. Remember, you're trying to get this middle number here. So keep your 6, build your houses. X goes in each house. Always keep your first sign. If your first sign is negative, you change your second sign. Write your larger number first, and then you're going to multiply to check. That is correct. And always make sure you check to make sure your houses don't have anything in common. They do not. Okay. GCF, 5, 7, and 6 don't have anything common I can pull out. So I do multiply your first by your last. So 5 and 6 gives me 30. List your factors of 30. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and 5 and 6. So what's going to give me that 7 that I need? Not 1 and 30, not 2 and 15. 3 and 10 could give me 7, so let's try that. Build your houses. Now remember, each house gets a 5x. Seems wrong, but remember, it's called right way, wrong way. But trust me, it'll work out in the end. Keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you keep your second sign. Larger number always goes first. Now looking at your houses, does this house have anything in common? Yeah, it has a 5 in common, so we're going to divide out the 5, leaving me x plus 2. My second house over here doesn't have anything in common, so I'm going to leave it 5x minus 3. Multiply to check. Yep, we're good. X plus 2, 5x minus 3. Okay, see if there's a GCF. There is not, so we're going to move on. Okay, so 10 times 9 is 90. List your factors of 90. 1 and 90, 2 and 45, 3 and 30. 4 go evenly. Let's see, 4 goes into 9. twice. Nope. 5 and 18, right? Six and 15. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go, because I know 6 and 15 will give me 21. Let's see if that works out. So build my houses. Each house gets a 10x. I know it seems wrong, but just go with it. Keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you keep your second sign. So I've got larger number first, and then look at each house and see what they have in common. This house has a 5 in common. This house has a 2 in common. So I divide a 5 out of this one and a 2 out of this one. So this leaves me 2x plus 3 times 5x plus 3. Check your work to make sure it's correct, and it is. All right, now we've got x squared plus x plus 100. So this is sum and difference of cubes, but if you didn't notice that, you can just do it regularly. You can say 100, and then 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, and 5 times 20 is actually going to be the ones, just kidding. I want 20. Let me erase that. I was thinking I wanted 25, but I want 20. Okay. What was wrong with me? 5 times 20. And then I think last is just 10 and 10. And 10 and 10 can give me 20. There we go. So let's build my houses. We've got x and x. Keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, keep your second sign. And you got 10 and 10, which is actually going to be x plus 10 squared. Okay, now this is difference of squares. So you want a plus b times a minus b. Remember, this is going to be your a and this is going to be your b, but we have to take the square root of both. So a is 3x and b is 7. So we're going to do 3x plus 7, 3x minus 7. And that's your final answer. All right. Remember, GCF as always, so we can factor a 2 out of this, leaving x squared minus 25. Now it's difference of squares. So remember, a plus b times a minus b. So a is going to be from here and b is going to be from here. But remember, you got to take the square root. So a is x and b is 5. So we're going to do 2, because don't forget that, times x plus 5 times x minus 5. Okay, this we're going to do roller coaster because of the cube. It's a dead giveaway. 1 to the front, 2 to the back. So x times x is x squared. Remember, each one of these lines is an x. And then here, each one of these lines is a 6, because 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. So back here, 6 times 6 gives me 36. Do your loops, because what's a roller coaster without some loops? You multiply. X times 6 gives me 6x. Now when you're on a roller coaster, you're either going to scream or puke. S for scream means same sign, O for or means opposite sign, and P means positive. So your answer is x plus 6 times x squared minus 6x plus 36. Okay, so again, these are both perfect cubes, so we're going to do roller coaster. You're going to bring 1 to the front and 2 to the back. So x to the 9th is going to be x cubed, and then x cubed, because remember, when you're multiplying, you add your exponents. So x cubed times x cubed gives me x to the 6th. And then y, we're going to bring, it's going to be y squared, and y squared. So a y squared is going to go here, and y to the 4th is going to go back here. Okay, now when you do the loop-de-loop, you end up with x cubed y squared, okay? And then scream or puke is going to be same sign, opposite sign, positive. Now I know on your study guide it says this is a 6, but I'm right, it's a 4. So it's x to the 6th plus x cubed y squared plus y to the 4th. Okay, for the last 4 problems, they're actually asking you to solve, not just factor. So this one they actually already factored for you, so you just have to set each one equal to 0. Okay, subtract 1 from both sides. You get 3x is equal to -1. Divide both sides by 3. You get x is -1/3. Then over here, you're going to add 4 to both sides. Divide both sides by 5. And you get x is equal to 4/5. So your solution set is -1/3 and 4/5. Now remember, you need to plug those back in to make sure that they're both correct. Alright, here you actually have to factor before you can solve. So check to see if there's a GCF. There is not. So you're going to multiply your coefficient of your first and last to get 40. List your factors of 40. Okay, figure out which of your factors are going to give you that middle number. So no, no, yes, and no. Okay, each house gets an x. Always keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you're going to keep your second sign. And your larger number will always get written first. Look at each house, make sure they don't have anything in common. Multiply to check your work. Okay, and then go ahead and solve by setting each one equal to 0. So you get x plus 10 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. -10 here, and 4 here. So your solution is -10 and 4. Make sure you check them. Alright, in order to be able to solve these, you actually have to set one side equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides, giving me x squared plus 2x minus 24 is equal to 0. Check for a GCF. There's nothing you can factor out of this, so go ahead and go through your typical steps of factoring. So you end up with 1 times 24, which is 24. List your factors of 24. Okay, and then you're going to find your factors of 24 that can give you 2. So no, 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 yes. Okay, build your houses. Don't forget your equals 0. Each one gets an x. Always keep your first sign. If your first sign is positive, you keep your second sign. Larger number always goes first. Check your work to make sure that you actually factored correctly, and then go ahead and solve. So you've got x plus 6 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. So you get x equals -6, and x equals 4. So your solution set is -6 and 4. Make sure you check them. Okay, so this is actually incorrect. It should be x cubed equals 36x. Okay, so start from there. So we're going to subtract 36x from both sides to get one set equal to 0. So you've got x cubed minus 36x is equal to 0. Now you're going to factor out your GCF. In this case it's x, so you're left with x squared minus 36 is equal to 0. Now you should notice that's difference of squares. So remember, when we do difference of squares, you're going to end up with a plus b times a minus b. Okay, so since it's difference of squares, remember this is going to give you your a, this is going to give you your b, but you have to take the square root of both. So a is x, and b is 6. Okay, so you've got x, and then you're going to do x plus 6 times x minus 6 is equal to 0. So you've got three things that you're setting. You've got 3 things here you're going to set equal to 0. You're going to set x equal to 0, x plus 6 equal to 0, and x minus 6 equal to 0. So first, x is 0. That's an easy one. x plus 6 equals 0, and x minus 6 equals 0. Subtract 6 from both sides, you get x equals negative 6, and over here you're going to add 6 to both sides, so you get x equals 6. So your solution set is negative 6, 0, and 6. Make sure you check all three in the original. Alright, that's it. You guys have a good night.